जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच। एक तो आई हैव टू पिक अ बोन विद ब्रीथ ऑर्गेनाइजर। मुझे बड़े डिफिकल्ट स्पॉट में डाल दिया आपने, बिकॉज देर इज a limited ideas that one can talk about, the issues one can talk about। वो सारे लोग तो कवर कर गए हुए हैं वो। तो अब मुझे आपने लंच के दरमियान डाल दिया है, लोग लंच का भी वेट कर रहे हैं और सारे जो मेन इश्यूज है वो एड्रेस हो गए हुए हैं। तो आई हैव टू बी गो डाउन a bit granular on what the real issues are and how those could be addressed. Um, um, there's no scarcity of funding out there, both locally and internationally. But it's really, and I'm going to divert the discussion a bit from purely economics and finance to more towards what the real issues are, as far as I'm concerned. It's really about the mindset issue. It's really about the issue of awareness. It's about creating a narrative, and I must compliment a great job done by Dawn Breathe in this context. We need to make people realize how climate could impact them individually, and then you will see the urgency for climate adaptation and the mitigation of it as well. Climate, ladies and gentlemen, is an inclusive agenda. It is. It's not an individual or an organization or a nation's problem. It is a problem across all the nations. And and to be honest with you, I think it's something which we need to collectively work on towards addressing, because the climate repercussions doesn't have any borders. And we've seen that in our case time and again with our neighbors. When there is a problem there, we get impacted on the climate side too. The funding requirements are gigantic. There's a lot of talk about what amounts are required. I just quote one number, which is $350 billion estimated to be required by 2030. And that's other than the possible flooding that could impact the damage. And just to put things in context, in 2022, the damage was $30 billion and 8 million families were displaced. In this context, we must look at what is lacking really. First and the foremost, to my mind, is the better coordination amongst various, federating units. The provincial governments have the projects. The funding are channelized or rests in the federal government. And better collaboration with the private sector is also the need of the hour, which perhaps require more attention. Other than that, as far as Pakistan's context is concerned, there is a serious lack of expertise. Lack of expertise to conceive the projects to begin with, and then converting those projects into bankable projects for raising financing. The access to foreign currency financing is another challenge because of our external account challenges. And there's a large component on most of these climate compliant projects, which is foreign currency, and we have that constraint too. The fiscal constraints obviously, until unless you create the incentive, and I know, Minister साहब इस बात के बहुत बड़े दाई हैं कि आपको हर एक के लिए इंसेंटिव बनाना पड़ेगा, तभी मार्केट रिएक्ट करेगी, otherwise people don't react. The fiscal constraint is very much there to create that incentive for people to undertake, high risk, long term novelty ideas. And of course, there is a serious lack of patience capital. Venture capital का ecosystem exist नहीं करता हमारे यहाँ, और debt capital market तो बिल्कुल है ही नहीं. वो फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर साहब ने भी आपसे बात की. These are the need of the hour. To my mind, these are the structural, gaps which are out there. Now, climate, in nutshell, is actually frontier financing. It's a priority sector financing indeed. And nowhere in the world, and ladies and gentlemen, when I say nowhere in the world, I mean nowhere in the world, priority sector or frontier financing is done without the support of the government, without the support of the sovereign. Even in the quintessential capitalist economies like United States of America, the frontier financing is only achieved when the government's intervention is there, the government support is there. Tesla, let me just share with you an example here. Tesla was initially conceived and funded through a Department of Energy under Ministry of Defense in USA's concessional financing arrangement. And I don't know why we are so averse to the idea of not asking for this support from the federal government. Our challenge, however, and one needs to be realistic about it, is on the fiscal side. Fiscal side, as far as the federal government is concerned. But the provinces are long on liquidity. And that's where the better alignment is necessary within the provinces, with the federating units, as well as with the private sector, and perhaps more needed to be done there. And let me assure you, ladies and gentlemen, if we'll be able to address all these issues, then banks will respond. The problem with the banks is that they can't respond in a vacuum. Whenever, such things have been taken care of, banks have responded really well. In Punjab, we have done 25,000 bikes in the last 18 months. The federal government had designed a project with us where we are giving 40,000, financing 40,000 bikes, and then EV taxis in Punjab is another success story. The biggest success story, of course, is the State Bank of Pakistan's solar scheme, where 2,000 megawatts were installed, 4,500 installations were done, and 95 billion rupee of financing was achieved. So whenever the risk architecture is right, it's well structured, and it's inclusive, and it's done in consultation with the right stakeholders, the response is positive. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I am not here to just defend the banks. I have to be realistic about it. I think the banks need to do more as well. And I think this is our collective responsibility, and banks are very much part and parcel of it, that they need to engage with the GCFs of the world. In case of Bank of Punjab, we engaged with AFD. It took us 2 years, but we eventually achieved $54 million financing from them, and $675 million of grant. Now, all the banks needed to do this in order to address this collective issue, inclusive issue of climate in Pakistan. 5 things which are needed to be done, in my humble opinion. One is to declare climate emergency, not just as a policy, as a statement, but as an action. We need to change the narrative of how this will impact any individual and their future generations if we will not address it now. And we need many more breaths. One breath will not do the job, really. Number 2, we need to make sure that the policies which are prepared are inclusive. They have the representation from the banks, from the regulators, and mainly from the business group, because they are responsible for executing it. And create an incentive all the way through. I also have to share with you that the time is ripe. This is the time when the feel-good factor is out there in the international community, and we really need to go ahead collectively and grab that opportunity. Salimullah Saab already talked about taxonomy. Operationalization of taxonomy is required as of yesterday, really. And the more involvement of the private sector is necessary there, sooner rather than later. More inclusive, the provincial engagement is necessary in the execution of the projects under taxonomy. Number 4, better engagement is necessary with ADB, with AIIB, with GCF. And merely funding is not the only thing that is needed from them. We actually require the technical support for conceiving the project and make them into a bankable project. Lastly, I'm going to suggest something very radical here today. Salim Saab is also there, Minister Saab is also there. Minister Saab की मैं थोड़ी सी attention चाहूँगा, ये मैं ज़रा radical बात करने लगा हूँ, आपको बड़ी पसंद आएगी Minister Saab. मेरा ये ख्याल है कि हमें बहुत seriously consider करना चाहिए to have a climate specialized bank. Yeah, one of the DFIs should be given the mandate to do the climate specialization. Without that specialization, अगर आप एक्सपेक्ट करेंगे कि हर बैंक अपनी कैपेसिटी को बिल्ड करे तो गालिबन ही एक चैलेंज होगा. और इसके साथ साथ जो इकोसिस्टम डेवलप करने की बात है अबाउट पेंशन फंड एंड इंश्योरेंस is also something which is an absolute must to move forward, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.